Hello, this is Andrew Petersen from G'day Sharm El-Sheikh. And this afternoon in Sharm El-Sheikh time, I am joined by Kate Wilson from the New South Wales government. But before I do, I just thought I should pick up the camera and give you a quick twirl to show you where we're at. There you are. We are in a makeshift Bedouin tent, I guess.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And
so
we're drinking some makeshift Bedouin
and we're drinking
tea.
makeshift Lipton Bedouin tea.
Yes.
All right. So our very first outside broadcast. Very excited.
Good.
And Kate, welcome back. It's actually welcome back to the show for you because you joined us last year on G'day Glasgow.
I did.
And so the very first question is, this is your what COP?
This is my second COP.
So Glasgow being your first.
Yes.
Okay. And the second question that comes from that is compare the two.
Compare the two. Well, we were just reminiscing last time. I think it was 7 o'clock on a chilly winter morning.
Yes, it was.
So the conditions are quite different here. We're sitting out in a balmy afternoon.
Yes.
Nice temperature. But I guess the biggest difference is this one seems much bigger. The organisation has left a bit to be desired. So actually finding your way around and figuring out what's going on is been a large challenge. But I think the similarities are the strength of the networking and the ability to connect with like-minded people.
And so many events. It's one of those cases that you would need another lifetime to get through them all.
You would need several lifetimes, I think, to get through it all. Yeah.
So give us a sense of why you're here. And as we talked, what's your noticeable, or the noticeable difference you would make between going to your first COP, and this one in relation to the areas that you're working on?
Yeah. So the biggest reason to be here is to connect with other subnational governments, regional governments.
Yeah.
And at COP26 last year, we announced, Minister Keane on video announced the creation of the Net Zero Futures Policy Forum.
Minister Keane of New South Wales.
Of New South Wales.
Who is now our Treasurer.
Who is now our Treasurer, but also Minister for Energy and still retains climate change.
Yep.
And that's a collaboration between like-minded, ambitious governments who want to reach net zero to really have a practical focus on how we can support each other with policy and programs.
Right.
And since the launch last year, we now have every Australian jurisdiction, so all 8 of them are members.
Yay.
Yep. And Scotland and Wales are members, so we've become properly international.
Yay.
As our colleagues in Scotland point out, we're very international to them, so we have to
watch
our language.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And having really productive conversations. So with a couple of German states today and with California and
really? Awesome.
Yeah. So that's growing. I should also say for me this year, so our Treasurer / Minister Keane was here last week for 3 days.
He was. So
that was also really fantastic to have him able to engage on the international stage, see what's happening, see how New South Wales is positioned and make some of those connections directly. That helps him, but it also really helps us because he understands the value of the international work.
Okay, so give us a little more meat on the bone around what the Under 2 Coalition and its work is going to be.
Yeah, so the Under 2 Coalition is an organisation that has, I think it's about 250 subnational governments that are members globally.
Yep.
50% of global GDP, and we've set up this Net Zero Futures Policy Forum within the Under 2 Coalition. And it's very much member-led, and it's about us working together on nutting out some of the program and policy challenges, particular ones. So we've set up 3 task forces initially. One is on net zero transport.
Yep.
One's on carbon sequestration, and we held an event last Thursday on carbon sequestration at the Australia Pavilion.
Oh, right.
So particularly focusing on nature-based solutions,
right.
which is that was great. Example, we talked about what we're doing in Australia, and we had a representative from Scotland, of course, talked about the work on the peat bogs and how they're sequestering carbon and peat. So you see those differences. And then the third task force is on green hydrogen, and we had an event today at the Australian Pavilion with Minister from South Australia, minister from Quebec, and then representatives from Scotland and North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany.
Oh God. Okay. And the for both sides of the equation, or both sides of the world, are there genuine life lessons to be learned from each other's experience around the decarbonisation journey?
There are, and I think again, having our minister, he could see that as well. So, for example, New South Wales, like all the jurisdictions, has got quite a clear roadmap for transitioning to renewables. Yep. We were having very interesting conversations with California, into quite a lot of technical detail about how do you manage, peak demand? What are you putting in place to ensure security of supply while you manage the transition? How are you managing this kind of contracting? So there's
very much the implementation.
Implementation, yeah. Right. And just sharing some very practical ideas and seeing, how we also had some interesting feedback from talking to the International Hydropower Association. Again, they've made the point, which I hadn't really thought about yet, but in terms of renewables and firming,
yep,
it's kind of saying the market doesn't really strongly reward firming because it's not supplying energy the whole time. It's a more a security thing.
Yeah, right.
So how are we thinking about that, and how do you
bring that forward?
Yes, when it's hydropower or batteries are critically important, but harder to finance than something that's churning out the electrons 24/7.
Yeah, right.
When the sun shines.
It's interesting thus far how these conversations, I've noticed, have got not to the minutiae, but they've certainly got to greater detail and specificity around elements of next step rather than why we should be doing it. It's very much that how. Is that your experience as well?
Absolutely the case. There's not been any, the how hasn't even, sorry.
The how
has been hasn't been questioned. The why should we do it has not been an issue at all.
Right.
It's how do we do it, and what are your
going forward, what do you hope this COP is going to achieve? Conscious that it's not a so-called big COP, although the experience is it's a massive COP. What do you think its success is going to look like?
I think the success is the strengthening the recognition of the role of subnational governments. To those of us who come from it, it's very obvious because in Australia and many other countries where it's the subnational governments, that make the decisions around transport or industry policy on the ground and do all the planning approvals and development. But there's quite a lot of discussion about almost making that more formal, strengthening the recognition of the contribution of subnational governments. And we're kind of saying, we're all here and we're networking, that's fantastic. Over there, we can't see, but that direction is where all the negotiations are going on. And we have no role, how do we input? How do we also contribute?
That feeling, girlfriend, as a non-state actor?
Yep. So I think that's a conversation that's building. It won't get resolved at this COP, probably not at the next one, but that's interesting to see how there's the practical implementation collaboration, but there's also thinking how can we influence the wider agenda. And there has been quite a lot of discussion as well about the contribution, but also the role that states and regions play in more ensuring that continuity of progress when federal governments may come and go and policies may shift federally. Not surprisingly, had those conversations.
How you
with
keep
our
that
American
permanence
colleagues.
of activity
Permanence of activity.
Wow, excellent. Well, thank you for your insights. Thank you so much for coming on to G'day Sharm El-Sheikh, the sequel version of G'day Glasgow. It was a bit of a running thing we thought would work. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. And I'm Andrew Petersen, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now. Bye.